So there's a lot of dimensions that I would say are typical strengths of a chemical adhesive company. And then there's one other area where we're quite strong is in understanding our customers' applications. So this is our more or less daily work on the core side as well, with a slightly different focus than in the digital context. But still, it's always about understanding how our customers, for example, produce their products, where you could maybe replace a mechanical solution by a chemical solution in the end. It's typically how to make a production process more efficient, quicker, more stable, whatever. So that's how we usually look at it.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to another episode of Industrial Visionaries. And today I'm talking to Michael Honné, the head of Industry 4.0 at Henkel for Loctite Pulse. Thanks for chatting to me today, and welcome to the show. Michael, can you share a bit about yourself, who you are, how you got into this role, and how you transitioned into Industry 4.0?
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much for having me. So as you just said, my name Michael Honné. I am at Henkel Adhesive Technologies, heading our Industry 4.0, or as we call it internally, MRO 4.0 business, where MRO stands actually for maintenance, repair, and overhaul. So basically industrial services, so to say. I'm now in this industrial service context for about 15 years, with different stations, actually starting in the research consulting context. Then I worked for ThyssenKrupp Industrial Solutions, a big industrial conglomerate in Germany. And since now about 5 years, I'm with Henkel in charge of building a new digital business in this context.
Very cool. Can you tell me a bit about the last part of that answer, like building a business within Henkel in Industry 4.0?
Yeah, of course. So at Henkel, maybe just a bit of context. We have mainly two businesses. One is the consumer business that maybe most of also the listeners know about, which is mainly about a lot of brands in the laundry, beauty context. This is not what we do. Then there's the other half of the business, which is the adhesive technology business. So it's about 11 billion business, where we, amongst many other industries, have one business very much focused on industrial services, industrial solutions. So basically, any kind of chemical solutions that you apply to your manufacturing or to your maintenance that help you, for example, prevent failures, that help you seal certain aspects, to repair assets and so on. And what I am doing in this context is actually creating a completely new business, which means instead of just repairing or preventing failures, to predict those. So still in the same context, but now it's the keyword would be like predictive maintenance or smart maintenance. That's basically what we now do, and that's what I am in charge of. So extending our current offering by those digital solutions.
Can you tell a bit more on like how did Henkel make the decision that this was a business case that they wanted to pursue, and how that works on a technical level?
So Henkel, as said, already has a quite big business in this maintenance context. So mainly this was all about chemical solutions, as said, for protecting, for sealing, for bonding, even for cleaning or lubricants. And the market is changing there a lot. So we see that a lot of our customers, but also our own production sites, more and more use digital technologies to support maintenance activities. We, of course, looked into this also from various perspectives. In my case, from a perspective, are there any opportunities for us to participate in such a much more dynamic market that maybe the typical or historical maintenance market? And this was one of the key reasons why we said we see here also an area where we can really make a difference, where we have a right to play, so to say. And that's why now already, that was even before I joined the company, like 7-8 years ago, the management decided, yes, this is an area of strategic development that we want to focus on.
And so that marked the transition for Henkel from purely chemical, so to speak, into digital as well. How did that transition go for the technical implementations?
You mean now on our side as a manufacturer, or more on the side as a product?
Oh, well, actually the latter. So if you sell to customers and it's just a chemical or a sealant or a lubricant, it's a very different process than selling anything digital, right? Even building it, like a chemical product is fairly stable, I hope. So every time you sell it, it's basically the same compound and the same reactions happen. But now you start to sell and build a digital thing. So if it's digital, you can change it every month and improve it. You can fix bugs. And I imagine for Henkel, this was quite a change, because first, it's very stable as a business in terms of what you deliver and predictability. And now you hire different people to build a product. You need a different way of selling it. You need a different way of building it and maintaining it and talking about the product as well. So can you tell a bit on like how that transition went into analytics?
Absolutely. I think I have to start even one step earlier. So you're right. We originally started selling chemicals, which are very much, I think you said, stable products that you sell to a customer. Once they are designed, they more or less stay like that till you have maybe a new version of a certain adhesive. We already for quite a while now extended this by actually offering solutions to our customers. So we don't see us as we have a broad portfolio or just a broad portfolio of adhesives that customers buy off the shelf, but in many cases it's more the solution that we offer to the customer. So it's really the question of what is now in this particular case the right application, the right product to use, and how to use it. Often it gets even customized. So that's maybe that was a starting point where we then even further transitioned into even a data-enabled offering. And indeed, both changes changed a lot in the whole company. So the step from, let's say, a product-focused business to a solution-focused business, and now also from a solution to even a data-enabled solution business, changed almost everything, all dimensions. So you already mentioned the sales perspective. So for sure, it's a very different sale, even though that's the good thing for us. It's still a value-based approach. So it was already before a very much value-based approach for us, and it still is. But you need a lot of new capabilities. You need a lot of, or you also talk to maybe different target groups. You have in general a different message to tell. Then you touched one aspect which is definitely a big change, or was a big change, is this product perspective, changing from a more or less rigid or stable product to a dynamic product which changes all the time. Is also on the product management side, even on the development side, a very, very big difference to what we did before. And last not least, just to mention maybe three aspects then, is it's also the business model. So while we typically in our so to say core business have mainly a once-off business, even though the good thing is it usually still repeats, but it's each time a transactional relationship to the customer. We now have a subscription in our offering. So it's actually a monthly payment that our customers have to do, which also on the business side or business model side changes a lot, not even mentioning the whole system and process aspects in it.
Got it. So now you're implementing digital solutions as well. When they do, like, how do the customers buy these? Like, what do they evaluate? What have you seen them use as criteria for selection? And what do you feel like matters most? Like, what are the top things that they consider here?
Of course, difficult to say as this differs from customer to customer, but I would say still there's a certain pattern. So what matters for probably all of our customers is the value that we in the end bring. And to make this as much as possible transparent. So this means in our case, our solutions, for example, help our customers to make their production more efficient, to avoid downtime. This is a hard number you can calculate, a hard saving that you can calculate. It helps them being more efficient in their processes. Also, this is something that you can, of course, calculate. So how much, what were the efforts you spent before? What were the efforts afterwards? So that's something we need to show. One aspect that usually is of high relevance is saving energy for us, often linked to also like sustainability related figures like CO2 emissions or stuff like that. So this is maybe the first bucket, showing value and making this really transparent to them. So last not least, it always is a question of what's the ROI or the payback period of a solution. Then what we see is another aspect is that it has to be easy to implement, or best case, easy end to end, as we say. So in particular with digital solutions, also we made in our own productions the experience, it often is like a big project that takes a long time till you see the first savings, right? You first need to design maybe the exact architecture, the interfaces. You need all the approvals from the IT side, then you want to maybe integrate it in a certain way. And this part we tried to make as easy as possible. Best case, you can really install it in a similar way as your smart home system at home, and you benefit from day one onwards. And this is like a very important target for us. And last not least, it's also about the application that you address. So from our own manufacturing and mainly our own maintenance side, we know what are unsolved needs or unsolved issues out there that we want to address, like a leakage detection solution that we have where we actually found out that there's nothing on the market like that. And this is also, of course, an important aspect of convincing in the end.
And so if you talk about successful implementations, but also be ROI friendly from day one, so show value and make the customer understand what they've bought from day one, how do you approach multi-site rollouts? Do you then start with like a lighthouse customer and incrementally have your customers adopt your product? Or how do you go about making that a success and ROI friendly?
Yeah, typically we do. And this is actually similar to also our core business. In only very few cases, you talk to the central maintenance or manufacturing organization, you convince them, and then you roll out globally. So that's also in our core business with the adhesives in very, very few cases the case. It differs a bit from industry to industry, but mainly we are in oil, gas, and chemical industries most active there. This is seldomly the case. So it's more a side-by-side thing. And then indeed, it's usually you start with one side where you maybe see the highest value, or where also often just opportunistically you got in touch with the first time, maybe at a conference or whatever was the starting point. And then indeed, it's like usually scaling within one side and then copying that to other sides once you have a good proof point within the company. Yeah.
And you stress the importance of selling solutions and something that works end to end. What's your perspective on build versus buy? It seems to indicate that you really like solutions that you basically buy. Do you see a trend towards building as well, or adapting to the process? How do you approach this?
I don't think there's right or wrong, but if there was, that would have a strong tendency to buy. So in general, I think companies, also maybe including us at Henkel, tend too often to build things that are already out there just because a certain adaptation you think is needed, which you could maybe either integrate into even one of those existing ones, or you could just get rid of. But that's maybe my short answer. The little longer one is we very much look at what are elements where we believe we can really add additional value, where we also have really a right to play. And when there are those areas where you then say this is of strategic relevance to keep this in-house, of course, keep those in-house, build that, but then also focus on staying state of the art, more or less. But then there's a lot of other areas that are important, but maybe not crucial to really differentiate from others, that are not crucial from a strategic point of view. And those are the ones where we usually build partnerships. So what we, for example, do, we partner a lot with, of course, also with established companies, but we also collaborate a lot with technology startups, which is for us one way of actually having state-of-the-art solutions in our portfolio, which still we can then offer to our customers with the expected quality and the expected maybe benefits of a much larger company with a global presence and so on. So that's our approach here. So buy a lot, but of course, whenever you really have a strategic relevance and the right to play, build.
Okay, love the little tidbit, the right to play. Can you tell me about a real world use case where you had the right to play? Like, what was the situation before and after digitalization was applied?
Yeah, so where we see a right to play is whenever it's linked to our chemical knowledge and to our current applications. So Henkel is actually the by far biggest company offering industrial adhesives. So in more or less all industries, we have like just in the maintenance business, like more or less 2,000 different applications, 2,000 different products. And we're very good in optimizing those, making those stable, bringing those maybe to higher temperature limitations and so on. So there's a lot of dimensions that I would say are typical strengths of a chemical adhesive company. And then there's one other area where we're quite strong is in understanding our customers' applications. So this is our more or less daily work on the core side as well, with a slightly different focus than in the digital context. But still, it's always about understanding how our customers, for example, produce their products, where you could maybe replace a mechanical solution by a chemical solution in the end. It's typically how to make a production process more efficient, quicker, more stable, whatever. So that's how we usually look at it. And that's also where we see a right to play for us. What does that now mean exactly for our product? So one example is we have a lot of sealing solutions where we seal flanges, pipes, tanks, where we seal any kind of geometries. And we now extended our offering of these chemical products by smart technology being capable of detecting leakages in this context. So when you, for example, in the oil and gas industry have critical segments of pipes, or you have critical flanges, tanks, we apply now our smart solution there.
So next to the seal, you have a sort of sensor that now reads
exactly
like parts per millions of a certain chemical.
Exactly. And this is basically how, or where we think there we really have like this right, again, the term right to play. And this is where we really make a difference also with our heritage of knowledge. Yes.
Got it. And so now you have the digital data. Now, what do those companies do with it?
That also very much depends. There are a lot of customers who are just interested in solving the issue. If it was the example that I gave you before, they had maybe issues with leakages under insulation. They can't inspect those assets. They just simply interested in receiving a notification when there is an issue, and then they act and they have safer operations or less downtime and so on. Then there are other customers who say, no, I really want to use that data also in my maybe bigger system. I need an interface, and you need to feed our data lake in the end, and we process this in a way that often we even don't really know what exactly they're doing with this. But also this is fine with us. So it very much depends on what the customer is requesting. We try always to offer an end-to-end solution, but then it's up to the customer whether they really use it end-to-end or whether they say, no, the front-end part, for example, I don't really care about your offering. We integrate it into our existing CMMS, and that's from where we take it.
And so with like a century of experience in adhesives, does Henkel do things differently on like measuring it, measuring seals or leaks in seals? And like, how does that build, like, how do you get the right to play compared to others? Like, where can you differentiate in that?
Indeed, there are not a lot of companies that I would consider our typically direct competitors in the adhesive fields that are also active in the smart world. I can hardly mention any. But of course, there are a lot of competitors then in the field for each individual application, right? So if it's a solution for monitoring steam traps or a solution for monitoring rotating equipment, there are also other solutions on the market. And here we usually differentiate with like first the portfolio that we offer, which we try, at least for our target industries, to make as holistic as possible. We're still far away from a fully holistic offering, but like having a one-stop solution is at least one advantage here. Then I earlier said it, this easy end-to-end is for us a big differentiator, so that we don't want the customer to start with a half a year or year-long IT project, but if they decide today to install it, they can do and use the data next day. And then it's really a question of, I also mentioned it already, more the showing the value in a transparent way. So best case, one click in the app gives you an idea of your saving, looking backwards, but also your potential costs that you would have if you don't act today. Like, what does it cost you if you wait another week, another month, another quarter till you replace or fix a certain asset?
Okay, thanks. So changing the perspective a bit to like what you have achieved over the past or are implementing now, if you change your outlook to like 3 to 5 years from now, what do you suspect are emerging technologies or trends that will just keep going and have a big impact in that time frame?
I do see there two things. One, probably less a surprise for most of the listeners, is Gen AI or large language models are also super interesting in the context of industrial maintenance. We are not yet there that we fully leverage that, but I see definitely a potential for visualizing the data that we provide to the customer in different, much more dynamic ways. So I think 3 to 5 years, we very much get away from a rigid dashboard, which gives you a certain set of data points, but you get much more into an interaction or a very much customer-specific visualization, right? So I ask my system, are there any issues? I have maybe a way of visualizing it in the exact way I need it in my particular context without needing a partner like us or others to adapt the dashboard, but this like really coming already with...
So this larger model is aware of the current data and continuously processes it, and then you can query it either through a chat interface or elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. And in particular, this, let's say, this last mile, or this last part of the chain where it's about how to now make the data that you receive the right format for the user. That's for me one area, which, as said, probably is for many out there already quite well known. And we see first developments in that direction. The second one is, for me, really much less known, where we believe with the combining more or less this chemical and the digital world much, much more. I won't go into all the details here, but what I see and what we're going to start already end of this, beginning of next year, is like making the first chemistry products themselves in a way smart that you can really, simply saying, talk to your adhesive or talk to your coating and get information from that without adding an additional sensor. So more or less the anyhow needed adhesive product that you apply not for the purpose of monitoring, but that you apply maybe with the purpose of protecting a surface, to take that example, becomes a sensor and can share with you information. So that's what we very much...
Instead of having a sensor next to an adhesive and just to check if there's leakage by just counting parts per million of a certain chemical, you inspect the adhesive itself.
Exactly.
And based on its chemical components, you have some value which says, for example, it's aging and you need replacing it, or it's probably leaking, or it's all fine.
Yeah, exactly. So these are for me the two main developments that I see within the next couple of years, changing the, let's say, the maintenance world, maybe even the manufacturing world quite a bit.
Yeah, directly inspecting the chemical compound, I had given zero thought, so that sounds really interesting. Thanks for opening this little door in my mind. I'm gonna ponder it for a long time. So thanks for sharing all that. So given all your experience and your knowledge in this space, what advice would you give to manufacturing companies that are currently looking for an effective partner and technology providers?
I think first and foremost, start doing it. I think, and again, I mean, we are in the lucky situation that we are not just a solution provider, but also 180 sites all over the globe using digital technologies, and by far not only the ones from Locked Pulse, but also from many other partners or companies out there. Start doing it. So I think in many cases, our sites just waited too long to at all start that digital journey. Yeah. And I think that's it. For sure, you will make mistakes. But even if you now wait another couple of years and do a lot of analysis, you'll still do. So just start getting into that. If you haven't done yet, that's for me one aspect. Also, don't start too small. I often see that companies like, let's do this for one or a few assets. I think that's not the right approach, because the problem is then either you have to wait for a very long time to really have valid set of data to make a judgment. And this can go in both directions wrong. Like either you have immediately a few cases and you think, oh, that's perfect, but it wouldn't work with 100 or 200 assets, or the other way around, which is usually more likely, that you just don't see anything. And you might think, okay, it's not adding value, but it's just not adding value because there was no issue with these 2, 5, 10 assets, right?
But if you start too large, isn't the risk of having a negative ROI too high? Because that's what I'm actually seeing is like, if you want to start with a 6-site rollout, it sounds really cool. And like, this is definitely something that gets management very engaged and gets bigger budgets. But the risk of failure is much higher as well. And so as soon as you have a failure, then your product is just thrown out, or like the whole strategy is abandoned. And they're actually much further from successfully applying digitalization than they were before they started.
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. So it's the finding the right balance. But still, my experience is that you rather see the other extreme, that you start far too small, and with this, it just takes far too long to then see the first good result.
They start with just data capture, and now they have data in a database, and no one cares about the data because it's just a data point. It doesn't add value.
Yeah, exactly. Or you start with just such a small installed base first that just because of statistics you cannot really prove a big value, or you do, but then it doesn't work for a higher amount. So but it's not talking that you should immediately start with 6 sites. It's more start with 1 site, take a relevant amount of whatever you're looking at, what application, but a relevant amount of installations, and then from there, after a certain period of time, you can much easier take a decision. And anyhow, there are a lot of offerings, also including ours, where the risk is usually on the provider side. So where you just have a certain subscription that you pay, and if you stop that after a while, you lose not a lot. Of course, you always lose a bit, and at least the efforts to maybe get a solution linked to whatever processes you have. But usually the risk, if this is of relevance, you can reduce that risk quite a bit.
Okay. Thanks for sharing. So we're about to wrap, but I definitely want to give you the chance to share how people can follow your work or your progress. So how do people keep track of all that?
Yeah, so I mentioned it. Actually, what we are offering, we call Loctite Pulse. Loctite is actually one of the biggest brands of Henkel, and our Pulse offering is actually our digital extension to this portfolio. So just Google for that, loctitepulse.com. You find more information, or find me on LinkedIn for sure, Michael Honné. Happy to get connected to you as well.
All right. Thanks a lot. Thanks for teaching me everything about adhesives. That's a new world for me. So that was great. Let's keep in touch, and thanks for joining today.
Yeah. Thank you very much for having me.